She sat in the small, dusty hall, her fingers brushing lightly over the worn keys of an old piano. The instrument had seen better days. Its surface was scratched and its pedals were loose, but to her it was perfect. Every note she played felt like a conversation with herself, a language that only she understood fully. Since she was very young, music had been a part of her life, a silent friend she could always rely on. But not everyone appreciated her passion. Many in her town thought playing the piano was a waste of time. They did not see the beauty in it, only a girl wasting her energy on what they called a silly hobby. At school, the situation was even harder. Her classmates would whisper behind her back when she practiced during free periods. Some would giggle if they saw her sitting at the piano pretending not to notice her. A few would openly mock her, calling her strange and telling her to focus on more important things like studying or preparing for a career that actually mattered. It hurt more than she let anyone see. The ridicule could have stopped her, but she had a stubborn streak. Music gave her something the teasing could never take away: freedom. At home, she often practiced late into the night, long after the rest of the house had gone quiet. The world outside her window could be harsh and unforgiving, but inside her room the piano sang with her feelings. She didn't need an audience. She didn't need applause. The sound of each note, the rise and fall of the melody, filled her with a sense of peace that words could never express. She dreamed of playing for others one day, but she knew that dream required patience, practice, and a heart that refused to break under criticism. Her family was supportive in their own way. They had noticed her talent early on, how her fingers moved with a natural grace, how her ears could catch subtle differences in sound that most people missed. They encouraged her to keep practicing, even if they didn't fully understand the depth of her love for the piano. Sometimes her mother would sit quietly in the corner and listen, her eyes closed as if she could feel the music in her bones. Her father would nod occasionally, a small smile on his face, proud of her dedication. Their quiet support gave her courage even when the rest of the world was unkind. Despite the ridicule, she found moments of joy wherever she could. She would sneak into the school auditorium during lunch breaks, just to sit at the piano alone. The echoes of her playing bounced off the walls, filling the empty space with a warmth she could not find anywhere else. In those moments, she felt unstoppable. No whisper, no laugh, no sneer could touch her. The music was hers and it belonged to no one else. But even with these small victories, the weight of judgment was heavy. On her way to school, she often overheard classmates making fun of her in the hallways. "Why do you even bother with that piano?" they would ask, laughing. "No one wants to hear you play." Sometimes she would turn her head and walk away, holding back tears, feeling the sting of words meant to wound. Other times she would smile politely, pretending the words did not matter. Inside, though, she felt a fire burning, a determination to prove them wrong, not through anger but through music. Her teachers had mixed opinions about her talent. Some encouraged her, praising her technique and the emotion in her playing. Others, however, seemed impatient, telling her to focus on academics instead. "Music is fine," one teacher said, "but don't expect it to get you anywhere. You need practical skills." She would nod, keeping her frustration hidden. She understood their point, but she also knew that music was practical in its own way. It taught patience, discipline, and resilience. It gave her a voice when words failed her. She began keeping a small journal, writing down her feelings after each practice session. Sometimes she noted the progress she made. Other times she wrote about the days when the ridicule felt heavier than usual. Writing became another form of expression, a way to channel her emotions into something tangible. On the hardest days, when the whispers seemed louder and the laughter closer, she would read her own words and remember why she played in the first place. It was not for the approval of others. It was for herself. One rainy afternoon, she decided to take a bold step. She went to the town library, which had a small recital space, and asked if she could perform for anyone who wanted to listen. The librarian raised an eyebrow but agreed, curious to hear what the young girl had to offer. On the day of her first small performance, only a handful of people came. Some were kind neighbors, while others were skeptics who had heard of her talent but wanted to see if it was real. She felt her heart pound as she sat at the piano, fingers trembling slightly. She closed her eyes and let the music flow, letting every emotion, every experience pour through the keys. The reaction surprised her. The audience was quiet, listening intently, some with their eyes closed as if they too could feel the music in their bones. When she finished, there was a moment of silence followed by soft applause. It was not loud and it was not a big crowd, but it was the first time she had felt truly seen. In that moment, she realized that while ridicule could sting, it could not stop her passion. The music had a power of its own, a magic that could touch hearts and break through doubt. From that day on, she made a promise to herself. No matter how many people laughed, whispered, or doubted her, she would continue to play. She would practice every day, learn new pieces, and grow stronger with every note. She would not let fear or ridicule dictate her choices. Music was her gift, her escape, her identity, and she would honor it. Even on the days when the teasing returned, she would remember that small audience at the library, the way their faces had softened, the way they had listened. It gave her hope, a reminder that there were people who could be moved by her talent, people who could see her not as strange, but as gifted. She carried that hope like a secret flame, letting it guide her through the shadows of doubt. Her dedication soon began to show results. Her fingers became faster, more precise, and more expressive. She could play with emotion that made listeners feel the story behind the notes, the struggles, and the triumphs. She started to experiment with compositions, creating small pieces of her own that captured her experiences and emotions. Each new creation made her feel more alive, more confident, and more connected to her inner self. Even with this progress, she remained humble. She knew that true mastery would take years, maybe a lifetime. But that thought did not frighten her. Instead, it motivated her. She would wake up early to practice, stay up late to perfect a melody, and never let the negativity of others overshadow her dedication. The piano was not just an instrument. It was her partner, her teacher, and her sanctuary. Every day she imagined a time when her talent would shine for everyone to see, when those who had laughed and mocked would be amazed. Not out of revenge, but as a testament to the power of persistence and passion. She knew that proving herself was not just about winning applause. It was about showing that dedication and love for what you do can overcome any obstacle, any scorn, and any doubt. She also began noticing the small changes in people around her. Some classmates, who had been the loudest in their teasing, now watched her with curiosity. A few teachers who had doubted her started to compliment her progress. Even strangers on the street would sometimes stop to listen as she played at public events or small gatherings. It was not immediate, but the world was beginning to see her talent as she always had. The journey was far from over, but that first part of her story, full of struggle, determination, and quiet victories, had laid the foundation for what was to come. She understood that ridicule could not touch her spirit, that passion could not be silenced, and that music had the power to transform not only her life, but also the hearts of those who listened. And as she sat at the piano practicing late into the night, she knew that the world had no choice but to pay attention one day, because she would not stop until her music was heard. After her first small performance at the library, she felt a new sense of hope. It was not a loud triumph, not the kind that would make headlines or bring crowds rushing in, but it was enough to fuel her determination. She began practicing more seriously, dedicating hours each day to improving her technique and understanding music more deeply. She wanted every note she played to carry meaning, to tell a story that could touch someone's heart. Her piano became her companion, and the music was no longer just a private joy. It was becoming her language, the way she communicated with the world. She continued attending school where the whispers and snickers never fully disappeared. Some students still laughed at her during breaks or sneered when they saw her carrying music sheets, but she started to notice a change in a few faces. Some classmates began to pause and listen when she practiced quietly in the corner of the room. They didn't clap or cheer. They just listened. That small attention, even silent, felt like a victory. It reminded her that her music could reach people, even those who seemed the least likely to care. Her teacher, who had once been skeptical, began to offer guidance in a way that felt supportive. They would give her suggestions on how to improve her fingering, on how to bring more emotion into a melody, or how to connect one piece to another in a performance. It was subtle, but it meant a lot. She realized that support could sometimes come quietly, without fanfare, and that it could be just as powerful as applause. Encouraged, she started experimenting with new pieces, combining classical techniques with her own improvisations. Each session at the piano was a journey, and every mistake became a lesson, not a failure. At home, her family watched her dedication with quiet pride. Her mother would occasionally hum along as she played, creating a soft harmony that made the practice feel less solitary. Her father began to talk about her progress with neighbors, sharing small stories of her talent and dedication. They did not push her to perform for large crowds, but they celebrated her growth in small ways. This gentle support allowed her to focus on the music without pressure or fear. She felt a sense of belonging and encouragement that strengthened her resolve to keep moving forward. One afternoon, she heard about a small regional music competition for young talents. The idea both excited and terrified her. She remembered the ridicule and the judgment from the past, and a part of her wanted to avoid another chance of embarrassment. But another stronger part of her wanted to prove something, not to anyone in particular, but to herself. She wanted to see how far her dedication could take her. She decided to enter, even though she knew the competition would challenge her and expose her to public scrutiny. For weeks, she prepared relentlessly. She practiced each piece repeatedly, refining every note and every pause. Her fingers became quicker and more precise, and she learned to control the tempo and dynamics with greater skill. She worked not just on technical mastery, but on conveying emotion. She wanted the music to speak without words, to connect with the listener's heart. Late nights became a routine. The house was quiet, but the music filled every corner. Neighbors sometimes paused outside her window, catching fragments of melodies and wondering at the dedication of the young pianist inside. As the day of the competition approached, nervousness settled in. She imagined the audience sitting in rows waiting for her to perform, and felt a familiar twinge of anxiety. But she remembered her own promise, the secret flame of determination she had carried since her first performance at the library. This was not about the opinions of others. It was about her music, her effort, and the journey she had undertaken. She reminded herself that fear was natural, but it could not stop her. The morning of the competition, she arrived early. The hall was modest, filled with chairs and a small stage, but it felt enormous to her. Other participants were warming up, practicing scales and chords, their fingers moving with confidence and familiarity. She observed quietly, taking deep breaths, feeling the mix of nervousness and excitement. When it was her turn, she walked to the piano with a steady step, keeping her focus on the keys and the music in her mind. As she began to play, everything else faded away. The doubts, the judgment, and the whispers disappeared. Only the sound mattered. The rise and fall of the notes, the subtle pauses, the emotion embedded in each movement of her fingers. The audience grew silent, absorbed in the music that poured from her heart. Some had expected an amateur performance, but what they heard was something far beyond their expectations. Her music carried a story of perseverance, of quiet strength, and of passion that could not be silenced. By the time she finished, there was a moment of complete silence. Then slowly the applause began. It was tentative at first, but it grew louder, filling the room with energy. She felt a rush of emotion she had never experienced before. It was not just relief or pride. It was the recognition that her dedication had paid off, that her music could move people, and that she was capable of overcoming fear and doubt. Even the skeptics in the audience seemed impressed, some leaning forward in admiration, others nodding quietly with a newfound respect. After the performance, a few people approached her, complimenting her talent and dedication. A music teacher from another town asked her to join a workshop, while a fellow participant expressed a desire to practice together. These small gestures were more meaningful than any trophy. They represented the acknowledgement of her hard work, the validation that she was on the right path. It was a reminder that passion and perseverance could create opportunities and touch hearts in ways ridicule never could. Returning home that day, she felt different. The world had not changed overnight, and the whispers of judgment still existed somewhere in the background. But her perception of herself had shifted. She had faced her fears, performed in front of strangers, and proven to herself that she could rise above the scorn. Her confidence grew not from arrogance, but from the quiet certainty that she had worked hard, embraced her passion, and let her music speak. In the days that followed, she continued to practice with renewed focus. She explored new compositions and styles, experimenting with rhythms, melodies, and harmonies that she had never attempted before. She began to imagine larger performances, dreamt of stages where she could share her music with more people, and thought about how far she could take her talent. Each day at the piano was a step forward, a moment to refine her craft and deepen her connection with the music. She also began mentoring a younger student who had shown interest in the piano. Teaching someone else was a new experience, and it made her realize how much she had grown. She could explain techniques, guide emotional expression, and inspire another person to pursue their own passion, even in the face of doubt. The student's excitement and curiosity reminded her of her own beginnings and reinforced her belief in the power of perseverance. Through all this, she never forgot the early days of ridicule. Those moments of scorn had shaped her resilience, her determination, and her empathy. She understood that criticism and judgment were often a reflection of others' limited vision, not a measure of her worth or talent. This understanding allowed her to face new challenges with a calm and focused mind, ready to let her skills and her heart guide her. Her story of small victories began to ripple outward. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers started to recognize her dedication and talent. Invitations to perform at local events, school gatherings, and small festivals began to arrive. Each performance was an opportunity to share her music, to tell her story without words, and to inspire others who might be facing their own obstacles. The journey was still challenging, but she faced it with courage, hope, and a growing belief in her own abilities. Part of her journey involved reflection and self-discovery. She wrote down her experiences, noting the emotions she felt during practice, performances, and interactions with others. She explored the reasons behind her love for music and the lessons she had learned from facing ridicule and doubt. Writing became a companion to her piano, another way to articulate the feelings and insights that shaped her journey. These reflections helped her understand that her path was unique, and that her determination and passion were the keys to achieving her dreams. With each passing day, she grew not just as a musician, but as a person. She learned patience, discipline, empathy, and courage. She realized that talent alone was not enough. Dedication, resilience, and a willingness to face challenges were equally important. Her music became richer, deeper, and more expressive, reflecting the growth she experienced both on and off the stage. The girl who had once been mocked for her love of piano was becoming a symbol of quiet strength and inspiration. Even as she continued to face occasional doubt and judgment, she held on to the lessons of these early victories. The library performance, the regional competition, and the encouragement of family and friends had all contributed to her growth. She knew that her journey was ongoing, that there would always be challenges ahead, but she also knew that she was capable of meeting them with courage, skill, and passion. And so, day by day, note by note, she continued to practice, to dream, and to play, letting her music guide her toward a future where her talent could shine fully and freely. The day of the big cultural festival arrived, and she felt a mix of excitement and nerves that she had never experienced before. This was different from the small competitions or library performances she had done before. The hall was large, filled with rows of chairs and a stage that seemed to stretch endlessly. The air was thick with anticipation, and the chatter of other performers and spectators made her heart race. She had prepared meticulously for this moment, but nothing could completely calm the butterflies in her stomach. She reminded herself that fear was natural, and that what mattered was letting her music speak. Backstage, she observed other participants warming up. Some were confident and practiced advanced pieces with ease, while others, like her, seemed tense but determined. She noticed the seriousness in their expressions and felt a pang of doubt. What if she made a mistake? What if the audience did not appreciate her music? She took a deep breath and closed her eyes, remembering the countless hours she had spent at home, alone at her piano, perfecting every note. Each practice session had brought her closer to this moment, and she refused to let fear control her. When her turn came, she walked onto the stage, feeling the eyes of hundreds of people upon her. The bright lights made her squint for a moment, and she felt the familiar rush of adrenaline. Sitting at the grand piano, she adjusted the bench and let her fingers hover above the keys. She could hear the soft murmur of the audience settling into silence. She took another deep breath and began to play. The first notes flowed smoothly, and she felt a wave of calm wash over her. The music carried her feelings, her struggles, and her dreams, and as she played, the audience was drawn into her story. She did not just play the notes. She breathed life into them. Each chord, each pause, each gentle crescendo was a reflection of her journey. The hours of practice, the ridicule she had endured, and the quiet victories that had strengthened her spirit. She felt herself connecting with the listeners not through words but through the universal language of music. As she continued, she noticed subtle changes in the audience. People leaned forward, their eyes focused intently on her fingers and the melodies they produced. Some closed their eyes, swaying slightly to the rhythm, letting the music enter their hearts. She realized that this was what she had been working for. Not recognition, not applause, but the ability to touch lives through her music. She felt a sense of fulfillment that no words could describe. The stage no longer seemed intimidating. It felt like a space where she could fully express herself. Halfway through her performance, she encountered a challenging section of her piece. Her fingers hesitated for a moment, and a flicker of doubt crossed her mind. But she remembered every late night of practice, every mistake that had taught her patience, every moment she had persevered despite ridicule. She pushed through, letting the music flow naturally. The notes became a conversation with herself, with her past struggles, and with the audience. By the time she reached the final chord, she felt a surge of triumph and relief. When she finished, there was a moment of silence, as if the audience was absorbing the beauty and emotion of what they had just witnessed. Then the applause began, slowly at first, then growing louder and more enthusiastic. She could hear cheers and whistles, and a few people called out words of praise. The applause was overwhelming, but it was not the noise that mattered most. It was the feeling that her music had reached people, had moved them, and had made a difference, even for a moment. She bowed, her heart full, knowing that every hour of practice, every moment of doubt, and every sneer she had endured had led to this. After stepping off the stage, she was approached by several attendees and fellow performers. They complimented her talent, asked about her practice routine, and expressed admiration for the emotion she conveyed through her music. Some asked if she would perform again, and a few even invited her to join workshops and collaborative projects. She felt a mix of pride and humility. The recognition was meaningful, but it also reminded her that the journey was ongoing. There were still pieces to learn, techniques to master, and emotions to explore. Later that evening, she reflected on the experience. She remembered the early days when classmates had laughed at her, when teachers had doubted her, and when she had practiced alone in her room, unsure if anyone would ever notice. The memory made her smile. She realized that those moments of struggle had shaped her, had given her resilience, and had deepened her connection to the music she loved. Without those experiences, the triumph of this performance would not have felt so profound. Her family was waiting for her outside the hall. They embraced her, their faces shining with pride. Her mother whispered words of encouragement, telling her how amazed she was at the performance, while her father's eyes glistened with emotion. Their support, combined with her own determination, had carried her through the challenges and doubts. She felt grateful, knowing that she was not alone in her journey, and that the love and encouragement of those who believed in her had made a real difference. The days that followed brought invitations to perform at other events and small concerts. Each opportunity was a chance to share her music, to inspire others, and to continue growing as a musician. She approached each performance with the same focus and dedication, remembering that the purpose was not to impress, but to express. The music became an extension of herself, a bridge between her inner world and the hearts of her listeners. She found joy not just in playing, but in connecting, in knowing that her music could bring comfort, happiness, or inspiration to someone else. She also began to explore new compositions and styles. Inspired by the festival experience, she experimented with blending classical pieces with modern rhythms, creating unique arrangements that reflected her personality and emotions. Each experiment was a learning experience, and she welcomed mistakes as opportunities to grow. The piano was no longer just an instrument. It was a partner, a teacher, and a canvas on which she could paint her thoughts and feelings. Her confidence continued to grow, but she remained humble. She understood that talent alone was not enough. It required discipline, resilience, and the willingness to face challenges. She stayed grounded by remembering her early struggles, the ridicule she had faced, and the small victories that had carried her forward. These experiences had taught her empathy, patience, and the importance of perseverance. They reminded her that true success was not measured by applause or recognition, but by the dedication, effort, and passion she brought to every note she played. One afternoon, she was approached by a younger student who had seen her perform at the festival. The student was eager to learn, shy but determined, and full of curiosity about music. She welcomed the opportunity to guide the student, sharing tips on practice techniques, emotional expression, and the importance of dedication. Teaching someone else brought a new dimension to her own journey. reinforcing the lessons she had learned and reminding her of the joy and excitement she had felt when she first discovered her love for the piano. Through teaching, she also realized the impact of encouragement and support. She remembered how her family had quietly supported her, how a few teachers had offered guidance, and how small audiences had listened with open hearts. She wanted to be that source of inspiration for others, to show that passion and perseverance could overcome fear, doubt, and ridicule. She began to see her music not just as a personal journey, but as a way to inspire, guide, and uplift others. As she continued performing and teaching, she received letters and messages from people who had been moved by her music. Some shared personal stories of struggle and hope. Others simply expressed admiration for her talent and dedication. Each message touched her deeply, reminding her that music was more than just notes on a page. It was a connection, a shared experience, and a source of comfort and inspiration. She felt a responsibility to continue honing her craft, knowing that her music had the power to make a positive difference in the lives of others. Her journey was far from complete, but the festival had marked a turning point. It was a moment when her dedication, talent, and perseverance were recognized, not just by herself but by an audience that had listened, understood, and been moved. She knew that there would be more challenges ahead, more moments of doubt, and more opportunities to grow, but she also knew that she had the strength, resilience, and passion to face them, to continue learning, and to share her music with the world. As she practiced late at night, alone in her room, she reflected on the journey so far. Every note she played was a reminder of how far she had come, from the girl who had been ridiculed for her love of piano to the young musician who could touch hearts with her music. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for the struggles, the encouragement, and the small victories that had shaped her path. The piano was no longer just an instrument. It was a symbol of her dedication, her resilience, and her ability to rise above challenges. With each passing day, her connection to music grew stronger. She explored new melodies, experimented with compositions, and shared her music with audiences and students alike. She embraced challenges as opportunities to learn, mistakes as lessons, and every performance as a chance to express her heart. The girl who had once been mocked now had a voice that could inspire, comfort, and move others. And she knew that this was just the beginning of a journey that would continue to unfold, note by note, story by story. After her unforgettable performance at the festival, her life began to change in small but meaningful ways. People who had once doubted her or ridiculed her talent now looked at her differently. Some classmates approached her with questions about music, asking how she had learned to play so well, while others watched quietly, perhaps reflecting on their past judgments. She did not dwell on the ridicule anymore. Instead, she focused on what she could do next, the pieces she wanted to master, and the performances she dreamed of sharing. The recognition she had received was motivating, but she knew that real growth came from consistent practice, humility, and the willingness to learn. She continued to attend school, balancing academics with her passion for music. Her daily routine became structured around lessons, practice, and preparation for upcoming events. Even in moments of exhaustion or frustration, she reminded herself why she played: for the love of music, the joy of expression, and the hope of touching someone else's heart. Her family continued to support her, attending her small performances, listening patiently to new compositions, and offering gentle encouragement. Their support created a sense of stability, allowing her to explore her talents without fear or hesitation. Opportunities began to present themselves more frequently. Local events, school functions, and small gatherings all welcomed her performances. With each performance, she grew more confident, learning how to connect with different audiences and adapt her style to suit the moment. She realized that music was not just about technique, but about communication. Each performance required her to be fully present, to feel the emotion behind each note, and to share it openly. She practiced not just with her fingers, but with her heart, and the audience responded to the authenticity of her expression. She also began composing her own music. Inspired by her experiences, her emotions, and the world around her, she experimented with melodies and harmonies that expressed feelings words could not capture. Writing her own pieces was challenging, requiring patience and creativity, but it was deeply rewarding. Each composition became a reflection of her journey, a story told through sound rather than language. She found that composing strengthened her understanding of music and expanded her ability to convey emotion, making her performances even more compelling. Teaching remained an important part of her life. The young student she had mentored continued to show progress, and she found joy in guiding someone through the same challenges she had faced. Teaching helped her see her own growth more clearly and reminded her of the importance of encouragement and patience. It also gave her a sense of responsibility as she realized that her dedication and passion could inspire others to pursue their dreams. This role of mentor became a source of pride and motivation, reinforcing her commitment to music and to helping others discover their own abilities. Despite her growing recognition, she remained grounded. She knew that the world was full of talented musicians, each with their own journey, and that comparison could easily lead to frustration. Instead, she focused on her personal growth, setting goals for herself and celebrating each step forward. Her daily practice became a ritual of self-improvement, a time to refine technique, explore new styles, and deepen her emotional connection to music. Even small achievements like mastering a difficult passage or successfully composing a new piece were sources of genuine satisfaction. As her performances increased, she began to understand the impact of music beyond personal expression. She noticed how certain pieces could evoke memories, inspire hope, or bring comfort to listeners. At local events, she observed audience members closing their eyes, swaying to the music, or smiling quietly as they absorbed the melodies. It became clear that her music was not just a talent to be admired, but a gift to be shared. The ability to touch lives in this way gave her a sense of purpose and responsibility, motivating her to continue growing and sharing her art. She also faced challenges. Not every performance went perfectly, and not every audience responded as she had hoped. There were times when mistakes slipped through, when nerves affected her playing, or when the atmosphere did not feel receptive. These moments were frustrating, but she treated them as opportunities to learn. She analyzed what had gone wrong, adjusted her practice, and approached the next performance with renewed focus. Over time, these experiences built resilience, teaching her that even in imperfection there was value in growth. In addition to local events, she began to receive invitations from more prominent venues. Small concerts, community festivals, and educational workshops offered her a chance to reach wider audiences. She approached each opportunity with gratitude and dedication, understanding that every performance, no matter how large or small, was a chance to connect, learn, and share her music. She remained humble, knowing that recognition was fleeting, but the skill, discipline, and passion she cultivated were lasting and deeply personal. Her creativity also flourished outside the piano. She explored the stories behind the music, reading about composers, studying different musical styles, and learning how historical and cultural contexts influenced sound. This deeper understanding enriched her performances, allowing her to infuse her interpretations with nuance and emotion. She began to see music as a conversation across time and space, a way to honor tradition while expressing her own voice. Each new piece became both a challenge and an opportunity for personal growth. At home, the piano remained the center of her world. Late-night practice sessions continued, sometimes interrupted by fatigue or distraction, but always resumed with focus and dedication. She experimented with techniques she had not tried before, sought feedback from trusted mentors, and recorded her own performances to evaluate progress. The discipline required was demanding, but the rewards, improved skill, emotional expression, and the satisfaction of growth, were profound. She realized that the journey itself was as valuable as any recognition or applause. Her growing confidence also affected her interactions with others. She spoke with more assurance, shared her ideas about music, and encouraged peers to explore their own talents. She understood the importance of community, collaboration, and mutual support. Music had taught her patience, empathy, and the value of perseverance, and she wanted to share those lessons with anyone willing to listen. Her relationships with teachers, family, and peers strengthened, rooted in respect for her dedication and the sincerity of her passion. Over time, she began to consider the future. While she loved performing locally, she dreamed of reaching larger audiences and exploring new opportunities. She researched advanced training programs, workshops, and mentors who could help her develop her skills further. She envisioned a path where her music could inspire people beyond her community, where her compositions could reach hearts in distant places. These dreams were ambitious, but she had learned that careful planning, persistent practice, and unwavering dedication could turn ambition into achievement. Through all of this, she remained mindful of humility. She remembered the ridicule she had faced and the doubt that had once surrounded her. These memories were not burdens but reminders of how far she had come and of the resilience she had built. They inspired her to continue practicing with focus, to approach every performance with sincerity, and to nurture her talent with care and dedication. She knew that the journey of a musician was lifelong, and that every experience, success, or setback was a step along the path. She also recognized the importance of balance. While music was central to her life, she made time for school, family, and personal reflection. She found that rest, reflection, and the support of loved ones strengthened her ability to perform and create. She learned to listen to herself, to understand her limits, and to maintain a healthy relationship with her passion. This balance allowed her to sustain her growth and avoid burnout, ensuring that her love for music remained a source of joy and fulfillment. As she continued to perform, teach, and compose, she saw the ripple effects of her dedication. Her students grew more confident, audiences were moved by her music, and her family and community celebrated her achievements. She realized that her journey was not just about personal success, but about the impact she could have on others, the inspiration she could provide, and the connections she could foster through the universal language of music. Each note she played carried meaning. Each performance was an opportunity to touch hearts, and each composition reflected her growth and dedication. Her story, once defined by ridicule and doubt, was transforming into a story of triumph, resilience, and inspiration. She had proven to herself that talent, when combined with hard work, patience, and passion, could overcome obstacles and touch lives. She continued to embrace challenges, celebrate small victories, and strive for improvement, knowing that the path of a musician was ongoing and filled with endless opportunities for growth, expression, and connection. The piano remained her constant companion, guiding her, teaching her, and giving her a voice that could inspire, comfort, and move others wherever she played. Years passed, and her journey as a pianist continued to flourish. The girl who had once been mocked for her love of music had now grown into a young woman, with a deep connection to the piano and a profound understanding of the power of her art. She had performed at countless events, both small and large, and each performance left an impression on her audience. She had composed new pieces that captured her experiences, her emotions, and her vision of the world. Music had become not just a passion but a way of life, a voice that spoke for her when words were not enough. As she gained recognition, she also became aware of the influence she could have on others. Young musicians who had heard about her story sought her guidance, eager to learn from someone who had faced ridicule and emerged stronger. She welcomed these students, teaching them not just technique but also the importance of perseverance, dedication, and passion. She encouraged them to embrace their own talents, to practice patiently, and to remain resilient in the face of doubt or criticism. Her guidance was not rigid. It was compassionate, supportive, and rooted in her own experiences. She remembered the early days vividly, the moments of loneliness, the whispers and the laughter of those who did not understand her love for the piano. She often shared these stories with her students not as complaints but as lessons. She wanted them to know that challenges and obstacles were part of the journey, and that facing them with courage and determination could transform fear into strength. Her story became a source of inspiration, showing that talent, when nurtured with patience and perseverance, could overcome judgment and doubt. Her performances evolved over time. She learned to read the room, to sense the mood of her audience, and to tailor her interpretations accordingly. Each piece became a dialogue between her and the listeners, an exchange of emotion and energy. She experimented with different styles, blending classical melodies with modern elements, and explored improvisation as a way to express spontaneity and creativity. Her music was no longer confined to the notes on the page. It was alive, breathing, and filled with personal meaning. Her family continued to be a source of support and pride. They attended her performances, celebrated her milestones, and offered quiet encouragement during times of challenge. Their unwavering belief in her abilities had been a constant throughout her journey, and she often reflected on how their support had shaped her resilience and confidence. Even as she achieved success, she remained grounded, knowing that humility, Hard work and gratitude were essential to sustaining her growth and impact. One day, she received an invitation to perform at a prestigious national concert hall. The opportunity was both thrilling and intimidating. It was the largest stage she had ever imagined playing on, and the audience would include critics, musicians, and enthusiasts from all over the country. She spent weeks preparing, refining her repertoire, and ensuring that every detail of her performance was perfect. The pressure was immense, but she approached it with the same mindset that had guided her since the beginning. Focus on the music, express emotion, and let the piano speak for her. When the day arrived, she stepped onto the stage with calm determination. The lights were bright, the audience immense, and the atmosphere charged with anticipation. She sat at the grand piano, took a deep breath, and began to play. From the first note, the hall was filled with the rich, expressive sound of her music. Her fingers moved with precision and grace, her body swaying subtly to the rhythm, her heart fully immersed in the melodies. The audience was captivated, drawn into the story she was telling through her music. As she played, memories of her journey flooded her mind, the ridicule, the late nights of practice, the small victories, and the moments of encouragement. Each note carried a piece of her story, and the audience responded with rapt attention. Some closed their eyes, allowing the music to envelop them, while others leaned forward, completely absorbed. She felt a deep connection with the listeners, realizing that her dedication, perseverance, and passion had created something that transcended words. When she finished, there was a brief silence, as if the audience collectively held its breath, savoring the last notes. Then applause erupted, loud and sustained, filling the hall with energy and admiration. Standing ovations followed, and she felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment and gratitude. This was more than recognition. It was validation of years of effort, resilience, and love for her craft. The moments of ridicule and doubt seemed distant now, replaced by a profound sense of fulfillment. After the performance, she was approached by critics, musicians, and young students, all eager to express their admiration and seek guidance. She spoke humbly, sharing insights about practice, emotional expression, and the importance of staying true to one's passion. She emphasized the value of resilience, recounting her own experiences with ridicule and doubt, and encouraging others to pursue their dreams despite challenges. Her words resonated deeply, and she realized that her impact extended far beyond the notes she played. In the weeks and months that followed, her influence continued to grow. Invitations to perform at national and international events arrived, and her compositions were increasingly recognized for their emotional depth and originality. She collaborated with other musicians, exploring new styles and expanding her creative horizons. Through each experience, she remained committed to authenticity, ensuring that every note she played reflected her own voice and emotions. Despite her success, she never lost sight of the importance of humility and gratitude. She remembered the small audiences, the library performance, and the regional competition that had shaped her early growth. She continued to practice diligently, experiment creatively, and mentor young musicians. She understood that talent alone was not enough. Dedication, empathy, and resilience were equally important. She embraced challenges as opportunities to learn and grow, knowing that the journey of a musician was lifelong. She also made time to give back to her community. She organized local concerts, workshops, and music programs for children, especially those who faced obstacles similar to those she had experienced. She wanted to create a supportive environment where young musicians could explore their passion without fear of ridicule or judgment. Her efforts inspired a new generation of musicians, instilling confidence, discipline, and a love for music. She found joy in witnessing their growth, knowing that her journey could help others navigate theirs. Through all of these experiences, she continued to reflect on the lessons she had learned. She understood the importance of perseverance, the value of quiet dedication, and the transformative power of passion. She recognized that setbacks were not failures but opportunities to grow, and that every challenge faced with courage strengthened her resilience. Her journey had taught her empathy, humility, and the profound impact of sharing one's gifts with the world. As she matured as a musician, she also explored new ways to express herself. She experimented with composing music inspired by personal experiences, societal issues, and the beauty of nature. Her compositions became a blend of technical mastery and emotional storytelling, each piece capturing a unique moment or feeling. She discovered that music could communicate universally, bridging gaps between cultures, ages, and backgrounds. Her ability to touch hearts with her compositions became a defining aspect of her artistry. In addition to performing and composing, she documented her journey. She kept journals of her experiences, reflections, and lessons learned. She recorded her compositions and performances, allowing her to track progress and share her music with a wider audience. This process of documentation not only preserved her growth, but also inspired others to pursue their own paths with dedication and passion. She recognized that her story, though unique, held universal lessons about resilience, determination, and the pursuit of dreams. As years went by, she became more than just a talented pianist. She became a symbol of hope and inspiration. People who had once doubted themselves found courage in her story. Young musicians who had faced ridicule discovered that perseverance and passion could lead to success. Families who had worried about supporting unconventional dreams saw the value of encouragement and guidance. Through her music and her journey, she demonstrated that dedication, resilience, and love for one's craft could overcome obstacles and create meaningful impact. Her legacy continued to grow with every performance, composition, and mentorship. She remained committed to excellence, authenticity, and the transformative power of music. The young girl who had once been ridiculed had become a confident, compassionate, and accomplished musician, capable of inspiring countless others. Her journey showed that passion, when nurtured with patience, dedication, and courage, could not only lead to personal fulfillment but also touch the hearts of people far and wide. In her quiet moments, she would sit at the piano reflecting on her journey. She remembered the early days of ridicule, the hours of solitary practice, the small victories, and the moments of encouragement that had guided her. She felt gratitude for every experience, knowing that each had shaped her into the musician and person she had become. The piano remained her companion, her voice and her sanctuary, a reminder that true passion never fades and that dedication can transform dreams into reality. Through it all, she remained humble, knowing that the journey of music was endless. There would always be new challenges, new compositions to master, and new audiences to reach. Yet she faced each day with enthusiasm, focus, and a deep love for her art. Her story, from ridicule to recognition, from doubt to triumph, served as a testament to the power of perseverance, the importance of believing in oneself, and the enduring impact of following one's passion. The music she played continued to inspire, comfort, and move people, leaving a legacy that would echo far beyond the notes themselves.